Legacy Cosmos is here and everyone's going gaga for this little green man, but is he even worth the hype? You gotta watch the video to find out. Welcome back to the show, it's Gray for May. And Cosmos is one of the brand new Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 figures, a line depicting the titular race and featuring a swath of sleek and stylish competitors, and also this plucky little chunkerton. Cosmos' vehicle mode is a round, saucer-shaped vessel with what looks like a large trash can sticking out of the top of it. He has a two-tone green color scheme and a silver and blue plate adorning the front with a big red nipple on top. Yes, he is supposed to be a UFO, one of the extraterrestrial variety. There's a rather pointed irony in an alien robot disguising himself as the one type of vehicle most directly associated with aliens, but somehow this feels like both the most obvious place to look and the last place you'd actually consider. His detailing is fairly straightforward, sticking mainly to hard geometric shapes with a number of vents strewn about his chassis. In the front, he has a pair of small cannons poking forward, and in the back, he has two sets of triple exhaust pipes on either side of his disc. His only stand port is also located at the back in the center of his trash can, which combined with his wide lower dish makes for a very awkward mounting situation should you wish to display him floating in the air. He is quite panely, but that can be forgiven since he is a fantasy vehicle. It's also a little troublesome to start his transformation, because after you flip his arms out, you have to awkwardly crab claw the back end of the disc to pull it outwards. If you try to grab this irresistibly placed back panel to pull it out, you'll just end up popping it off. Also, make sure you do this before you try to flip his head out, because it'll get stuck otherwise. I should also mention the weird gap under his can and the visible yellow joints that kind of spoil the cohesion of the design. It comes off a little rough, and in a way, it's indicative of things to come. Now, while it is nifty and pretty cute for a vehicle mode, I think the obvious question is, how exactly do you justify adding a spacecraft to a subline themed primarily around race cars? The original Cosmos actually had little wheels, but this version neglected to include them. Why would a character without wheels be on Velocitron, a planet whose entire culture is centralized around racing? Everyone there is a race enthusiast, or as they call themselves, a racist. And you'd have to be more than a little bit racist to compete in the Speedia 500, the master race, where the winner is crowned the president of Velocitron, and thus the most racist person of all. It's a sardonic commentary on our own democratic process, you see. So because Cosmos can't be a member of that race, he has instead been made the commentator / officiator of the Speedia 500, waving the oh so important checkered flag, and the flag can be swapped around, allowing Cosmos to turn from ardent racist to Frenchman in one easy step. The flag also doubles as Cosmos' weapon, a small green generic looking pistol. It's pretty minimal detail wise, but the most important part of this weapon is that for once in this godforsaken toy line, they designed it to be compatible with War for Cybertron blast effect parts. You can attach them to the little cannons at the front of the spacecraft too. And now he looks like he's ready to harass some poor elderly corn farmer out in a flyover state somewhere. You know, just like in Signs. The UFO mode is pretty sweet, and it's cool to get some fairly out of this world alternate modes from time to time, though it doesn't much look like a real UFO. However, it's concealing some much deeper issues. Cosmos' robot mode is a chunky green and yellow bot with a round stocky body, blocky yellow legs, and a red bullet-shaped head with large blue eyes. He's pretty much a dead ringer for the character as seen in the G1 cartoon, and has a much more sophisticated level of sculpted detail on the surface when compared to the original toy, but loses the toy's more colorful chest details. He has an average level of articulation, but also features a pair of movable little side skirts, as well as a waist swivel. His head also has a lot of movement, so he can look pretty expressive, which is a massive improvement over the original, which didn't even have eyes.
What's wrong with your face?
I have a slight problem with mine as well, where the right arm is pretty loose and floppy. It's not enough where the arm is unusable, but I've had multiple people mention to me that their copies were also loose in the same arm. It seems like it could be something to watch out for with this figure. So he's pretty cartoon accurate, but he wasn't always gonna look that way. Cosmos was initially conceived as a retool of Origins Bumblebee, until our blessed Japanese team worked their mysterious Nippon magic and gave Cosmos his own mold with a minimal amount of tooling. And it shows in multiple ways, good and bad. You can really appreciate how talented and creative the members of the Transformers team can be when pressed for resources, especially with the modest level of complexity his transformation has, where it's not only fun to flip him back and forth between modes, but he also has some awfully clever ways to hide and utilize the excess kibble from his unique vehicle mode. Unfortunately, the drawbacks to a lack of resources also really come through on this figure. Because he's so simple, he has this rather clean quality, the same one that cheap dollar store type figures have. This isn't exemplified better than by the enormous gaps all over his body in every single piece. Now, we all hate gaps, especially thigh gaps, and Transformers as a toy line is frustratingly notorious for putting hollow, gappy parts in their figures as a cost-cutting measure. However, typically these gaps are loaded with more mechanical detailing, so at least the giant holes in your toys have a little bit of pizzazz. Cosmos features no such detailing in any of his gaps, and it's rather noticeable in his massive hollow arms, though they did remember to include a small indentation for his fists to rest in there. I've noticed this dearth of details on Override's innards as well, which really leads me to suspect that these two were all but rushed out the door and didn't spend enough time at the finishing touches stage of the production process. It's sort of a small problem and one that I don't think most people would bother to notice, but it reflects on the overall integrity of the figure. It doesn't make me dislike him. I still think he's a fun and clever figure, and he doesn't exactly have any major problems otherwise, but he's in this awkward position where he feels a touch overvalued. If I had to quantify it, I would say he's just above the quality of a Cyberverse figure. There's nothing wrong with that, but typically those cost around $16 and are somewhat less refined than a mainline deluxe. So sticking a deluxe price tag on a figure of roughly that caliber seems way out of line, and it doesn't help that he's been short packed and already commanding a premium aftermarket price. That's like the very definition of overhyped. So I hope everybody who wants him can find him at retail, or at least for a fair enough price, because a new figure with some limitations is still better than no figure at all in my opinion. So thank God for foreign ingenuity, because without it, we may have never gotten a G1 accurate Cosmos that's pretty decent. Just like without it, we may have never won the space race, never ask a woman her weight, a man his salary, or NASA, who all those suspiciously German guys working on the Saturn V project were. Check out the Legacy playlist for more Legacy Transformers reviews. But as always, that's just my opinions. Please leave yours in the comments below. Bye bye. Oh my god. Somebody's got to update his wiki page.